everyone. Welcome back to Research Works podcast. We're so excited that you've decided to join us today, whether you're walking to work, whether we're joining at the gym, whether you're on your way to, I don't know, a friend's place. People always listen to us on the way to something, don't they, Marissa?
Yeah, what a lovely way to start or end your day.
With our voices in your ears. And like today, we're pretty excited because we don't always have an in-person guest. This feels a bit different, doesn't it?
It does, because we don't have headphones on. And our guest we can see, we've had a little chat with before.
She's in 3D.
Yes, we're very thrilled to have our guest in the studio today. So welcome back to the pod, Dr. Emily Jackson.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
So nice to have you. We were reflecting the last time you were here. Yes, I had my puppy in here and he was pretty quiet the whole time, thank goodness. He was a good boy, wasn't
really
he?
well.
Yeah. He's at home today, Frankie, and he is 4 years old now. So I was reflecting, I was like, when did he come on?
It has been 4 years.
We measure it by dog years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the way we
And it
can
does
do
feel like it's been more than 4 years, probably, like in dog years.
Yeah, probably so. And the last time we spoke, you were talking to us about some studies you were doing, and I've never forgotten about the Gornapec.
I'm so pleased because that was the whole point, was we were looking at word learning, which was what my PhD was all about. And this is probably the only sample, you're the only sample of whether that word learning process actually works. So you're my N of 1.
N of 1 study. I love it.
You've done well.
Thank you. Oh my goodness, we're such nerds, aren't we? I just absolutely love it. And the other part that's really unique about today as well is we don't have many speechies that come on board.
No.
It's lovely to have another speechie here. I know our speechie who's here in the team was very excited. I dropped it this morning. I'm like, hey, Emily's coming in. She's like, EJ. I'm like, okay, you know each other.
We all know each other.
We all know each other.
It also led me to search icebreaker questions with a speech tone. And but we'll get to that in a minute.
Great.
Today we have some very exciting new research to talk about, published just earlier this year in the Journal of Speech Language Pathology, titled Profiling the Oral Language and Psychosocial Skills of Young People Attending Flexible Learning Programs. This is a unique insight into an area that we haven't covered before. We're very excited to get into this.
Yep.
But before even we get to icebreaker, we're going to tell everyone a bit more about you in a formal way.
Cringe.
Sit through
I know you're here, so you have to. Okay, I'm going to look at you.
You can stare down the barrel of that camera.
I'm just going to... Where's the puppy when you need it?
Puppy, come on and just rock in the corner.
I will not make this awkward. Dr. Emily Jackson is a speech pathologist, lecturer and researcher in the Curtin School of Allied Health at Curtin University. She's also affiliated with the Curtin Enable Institute and a member of the Language and Literacy in Young People Research Group. Emily also works clinically as a senior speech pathologist in a forensic mental health setting. She's passionate about creating a world where developmental language disorder, or DLD, and mental health are well understood by students, families, and professionals. Using collaborative, community-engaged methods, Emily ensures her research reflects real-world needs. Her current work focuses on co-designing interventions to improve communication and mental health outcomes. This includes working closely with young people, families, professionals, and schools.
Wow, that is very cool. I love it. And I only saw you shuffle in your chair about 50 times.
I love your passion for this and that you really, there's obviously a lot to get into, but I am going to jump to the icebreaker.
Right.
So being a speechy, of course, like I said, that led me to this, it's quite a simple one today actually. Yeah. What is your absolute favourite word in any language and why?
So I am going to go with an English word.
Okay, yes.
It came into my head straight away, and it's probably because one of my PhD supervisors said it to me a number of times back in the day, and it's really stuck with me.
Yeah.
The word is bloviate.
Oh.
And so I obviously haven't looked it up in a while, but what I understand the essence is when you use way too many words to explain something, and you might only actually need a couple of words to get the point across. And I lovingly received that feedback on my research papers a number of times.
And they used the word bloviate?
Bloviate, yes.
Oh my goodness.
But I learned a new word. Like, what a lovely way to receive feedback using the fanciest words possible. Like, I really appreciated the means of the feedback. It was, I'm going to name them personally because they're also one of the authors on this paper, Professor Mark Boyes, who is very efficient in the number of words he used.
Yes.
So I'm continually trying to not speak in a bloviated manner. Yeah.
Bloviated manner.
No idea how you spell that, but let's
I think I'm going to look it up and I want to use it.
Yeah.
What
Please
a great
do.
way. Yeah, because I provide feedback on reports and academic papers. I'm not going to do it to my colleagues. I don't think I'll do that.
Sure.
Maybe to students I will do it. Can you imagine if I did that? Too bloviated?
Too bloviated.
Too bloviated?
Yeah.
You're bloviating? Can we say that?
Probably. I think you can mix it up
You can
however
make
you
it a
like.
verb.
Yeah, if it comes from a nice place and you've got a good relationship with that person, I
love
think
that you
it will
said
be.
that.
I think it will be received with the intention.
With the intention required. Oh, that is such a
I'm
good
going to give you
word.
really short responses now during the day.
We're all going to be mindful of
I will not be bloviating.
Oh gosh, the fact that we sit next to each other at the moment, I mean, it's great, but we are distracting each other a lot at the moment with our music. So we'll have to have a good think about what word we can use to just, cue us back in again.
Yeah, I love it.
We both
Point.
get in zones as well, so
We
we
do
just
get in
need to
zones.
that's when the bloviate needs to become. However you use that in that, yes.
Well done. Use the word.
Thanks, Em.
Yeah,
for the
pleasure.
new word.
Good.
Dana, what's yours?
So my word's nowhere near as cool. I wish I went first. My word is so simple, but maybe it's educational for our international audience. It's brekkie.
Oh,
It's such a simple word, I know, right? But
Great
I
word.
remember talking about this. I was traveling in Italy with my husband's family and their kids. And I love breakfast. And I talk about it all the time. I'm always like, let's go out for brekkie and brekkie this, brekkie that. And everyone's looking really confused. And eventually the kids were like, brekkie. And like, what is it? And I just think it's such a great word that brekkie has emotion to it. Breakfast is so, you're breaking the fast. It's too technical.
very formal.
Too formal.
Yeah.
I think just breaking it into brekkie would be the way to do
Yeah.
it. And if I can put in an extra word that I really love, would be rendezvous. And I know it's not an English word, but I do remember my husband telling me a story when he was at school. You know how they have to read the word out loud in front of all, in English classes?
Yes.
Terrible, right? And he didn't know how to say it and said, signaling 8 years old, said rendezvous. And the whole class laughed.
well, that makes sense.
And it's mean, but it's funny. But every time I see rendezvous, I'm like, rendezvous. Slotted an extra one in there for you all, but
Love it.
brekkie is my favourite
Bonus word.
Love it.
Yeah,
Now
thanks.
I keep changing. I've changed my word about 5 times. I'm going to go with awesome. I use it way too often.
You
It's
do use it a
awesome.
lot. It's good.
Awesome. It's great. It's awesome. And even when I text message people, I
Awesome.
look. My family thread must note my responses as always being awesome, awesome. Secondly, followed by that's cool. But awesome is just my go-to. That's my happy place word.
And it describes your vintage.
It's not just good. It's not great. It's awesome.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's born in the late 80s, into the
Yeah.
90s. It's the word that you would use.
It's a classic millennial.
Yeah.
Totally, right?
I've got my ankle socks on, not today because it's Funky Sock Friday, but it goes with my age
They're
group.
awesome.
Yes,
yeah,
that is my word.
exactly.
But there's nothing wrong with ankle socks, right? I only wear higher socks nowadays because I do get a little bit cold when, just that little layer. Yeah, so I do that. But sometimes when I go out and if I'm exercising, I try not to wear the long socks because I don't want to people think I'm a Gen Z. Nothing is wrong with Gen Z. It's just I'm a
Right.
very proud millennial.
Okay. All right.
I think you can rock a longer sock, but that's okay. All right, we are going to jump into what we're chatting about today. Thanks, Emily, for sharing us with a new word.
Thank you very much. I want to use that word a lot. Do you reckon we could insert it in here a little bit?
I was wondering
it'd
that,
be a
but
bit
then
rude, wouldn't it? Actually, in a podcast.
Could be very fitting.
okay.
If you need to wrap me up a little bit, keep things moving.
18.
I'll work out a charade for that word.
Okay. Well, before we get into it, let me give everyone a bit of a rundown about this particular paper. While secondary school students attending flexible learning programs have histories of poor engagement in schooling, little research has examined their oral language skills and psychosocial outcomes. This research looked to profile oral language in students attending flexible learning programs and explored associations between language and psychosocial outcomes. 97 students aged between 12 and 18 years completed a range of oral language assessments, and what they found was striking. 68% of the young people scored below the average range on standard standardized language assessments, far higher than the roughly 7% we see in the general population. Over half also showed high levels of psychosocial difficulties. So this is one of the first studies to directly link oral language profiles with mental health and behavioural outcomes in flexible learning settings. This work makes a strong case for embedding speech-language pathology and mental health support in these programs if we want to improve both engagement and well-being. I have to admit, as I was reading that, I did get a flashback, because I did it to myself, about being in school and reading something out loud, and then all I wanted to say was rendezvous. That just was in my head. So sorry. But anyway.
But do you know what? It reminds us how important language is for your confidence.
It really does, yeah.
Because for your confidence, it's the way you present yourself. It's the way you feel, then that obviously relates to mental health. But also it's your way to integrate in the world. As we know, communication, whether it's verbal or non-verbal or what you're reading, a lot to go through. So very excited, Emily. But can you start by telling us what flexible learning programs are and why young people typically end up in these school settings?
So they're essentially a type of alternative education model. Around different parts of Australia, they're called really different things, but broadly we tend to use the term flexible learning programs or flexible learning options. Sometimes they're standalone school sites, so they might sort of look and feel in a lot of ways like a normal high school, or they might be embedded into TAFEs, or they might be embedded into mainstream school in some way and sort of be a separate stream. But essentially what they offer is very individualised support and a higher level of support for the students as well. So oftentimes the class sizes are a lot smaller. The students might be on a modified curriculum in some way. There also tends to be a higher level of mental health and wellbeing support for the students. So that wellbeing support does actually tend to be there, but speech pathology services are often not there, which is one of the reasons why we ended up going in.
Yes.
So the students might end up going to a flexible learning program because for some reason mainstream schooling hasn't served them in some way. So they're often described to be quote unquote disengaged from mainstream schooling. And that might be because they've got lots of behavioural, and again I use that term very broadly, like behavioural challenges, which has led to lots of suspensions or from being excluded from school.
Wow.
Oftentimes they have additional learning needs or mental health requirements or something, and sort of those larger mainstream schools don't necessarily work for them. So actually when we look at it, there's a lot of factors that underpin those difficulties. The students oftentimes come from really disadvantaged backgrounds for lots of different reasons.
Is it hard for children to get in, or teenagers to get into these schools? Like, is there much availability or access?
Yeah, I think I don't know, sort of as a short answer. I think all of the different programs are run under different organisations. So some of them are run by the Association for Independent Schools of WA.
Okay.
Some of them are run by Catholic Education, Department of Education. So it sort of depends on depends on where you're going. But with some of them you do have to apply and, sort of do a bit of an interview and things. Yeah.
And is this something just specific to Australia, or are there equivalents in other countries around the world?
Yeah, so the term flexible learning programs I think is pretty common within Australia, but this idea of alternative education is definitely, quite an international concept. So there's quite a bit of research in, the US and Canada and a lot of these sort of predominantly English-speaking countries probably, and they use a very similar sort of model in terms of the smaller class sizes and extra learning support and things.
Great. Now, you've already alluded that there's not a speechy in these settings, but what was the gap in the literature that motivated this study?
It was actually first and foremost driven by the schools coming to us as researchers, which as researchers is the dream. We always strive to be doing community-driven work and, to be co-producing what we do and really reflecting what the community needs. So it was back in 2020 that the collaboration first started. So some people from leadership in these flexible learning programs approached a couple of our senior researchers at Curtin and we're kind of saying, look, we think that there's a high rate of language difficulties, our teachers are noticing that this is maybe something that's going on. What can we do to maybe identify that and formalise that? So it was actually driven by them first, which was
so good.
Yeah, which was wonderful. And then from there, we found not a lot of research in Australia. There was one previous study which was led by Pamela Snow over in the eastern states, and they did some work with flexible learning programs and found about 72% of the young people that they assessed had a language disorder. So very, very high rates.
Yes.
So that sort of just further supported to us, like, we really will need to see what this looks like in WA as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a great opportunity to do research that's just needed by the community. I can see like you beaming, because that is, you're right, it's the dream. It's
so
the
good.
purpose, right, of doing research and doing that together, and the fact that happened in 2020. So that's amazing in terms of that relationship that's built. I really was interested in your introduction, you talked about engagement, and I love that you actually talked about it in a few different dimensions, because engagement is one word, but it's actually quite multidimensional.
It is.
Do you mind walking us through what actually we mean by engagement?
Yes. And I think when we think about schooling and kids and teenagers going to school, we often think about disengagement as being, they just don't turn up or something, we really oversimplify it. Yeah. But the way that we described it, and a lot of research talks about it, is there's these 3 dimensions. So one of them is the behavioural engagement. So that is to do with actually turning up to school, what the attendance rate is like, but also how well a student might be following school rules and participating in the activities that they need to do. Then there's more of this emotional or affective engagement, which is about how do they actually feel when they're at school, and how do they feel about learning? Do they feel connected to their teachers and their peers? And then there's this cognitive engagement, which is about more their like intrinsic motivation to learn. Like, are they actually really interested in the learning process? Are they setting goals for themselves and like genuinely sort of inside themselves, like excited to learn new things? So we like to look at sort of that whole range of engagement rather than just attendance rates and things like that.
Yeah. It's often like I relate it to, the terminology we often talk about as participation. You can attend and be there. Yes. But to be involved is a whole other matter. Yeah. And it's experiential, isn't it? Yeah. And it's very qualitative in a way. And it's the same thing with engagement, isn't it? It's a deeper understanding rather than just ticking the box, they were there.
Yes.
And, I'm in classrooms, it's, the roll call is just, are you there?
Are you there? But are you actually sitting in the corner and like really stressed about your learning experience?
Yeah, that's right.
When you're truly engaged, that's when you take something with you. I think we all remember moments at school when we were truly engaged in topics of interest and things and they're those things, learning experiences that you take with you.
Yes. That's right. Yeah, and you remember the teachers that made you feel really special.
You really do. Yeah. You remember their names still, and they were really influential. But that impacts your future in so many ways of feeling like things are actually possible. And it's such formative times in our lives. So this one, you looked at both oral language and psychosocial skills together in this population, and you sort of alluded a little bit earlier about some of the difficulties that some teenagers may be facing. Specifically looking at those 2 areas, why are they so important? Oral language, psychosocial?
Well, our research team broadly is just so interested in these 2 areas. It's kind of the main drive of what a lot of us are looking at. We know that they're just so linked. It's extremely hard to pull them apart. When we look at someone's mental health or their sense of well-being, so much of that is really linked with what they can do with oral language. Even just can they understand their family, or are they able to go home and talk about an experience that they had during the day? Yeah. We're using language all the time to make sense of our emotions and to build and maintain relationships. Yeah. And there's a lot more research that's coming out now that's showing the link between the 2. So in a big sort of meta-analysis that was done, I think it was in 2014, they found that more than 70% of students that had social, emotional, behavioural difficulties also had language difficulties
Wow.
and often unidentified language difficulties.
Yeah.
So we tend to see the mental health side first. We especially tend to see behaviours first because they're very clear to see a lot of the time when someone's struggling with behaviour. But actually when we dig down, there might be oral language needs that are there.
Wow. And do we know much about, like, are there formal diagnoses? Are these the individuals that have kind of slipped through the cracks in terms of a formal diagnosis and they've found this, this mental health outcomes that you've sort of seen, and then you sort of dig in to look at the language? But are there diagnoses involved?
Oftentimes they might not have had a diagnosis. They might have been unidentified. And that could be for lots of different reasons. They might not have had sort of early screening, or they might have had early screening but then not been able to access follow-up services in some way.
Yep.
And there are certainly some pockets of the population that are sort of more disadvantaged when it comes to actually needing to ideally go and see a speech pathologist or a multidisciplinary team and get this full diagnosis. That's hard. It takes resources.
It does, yeah.
So a lot of children will slip through the cracks, and sometimes when we dig back, we do see that some concerns had been raised potentially.
Okay.
But for lots of different reasons, they may not have gone down that path.
Sure.
But equally, sometimes it's just not been picked up. A lot of kids really fly under the radar. We know that language and learning difficulties are really invisible in lots of different ways.
Yep. Wow.
What I really love is obviously, so many things about this, but in terms of that it was local to our state, it was in response to consumers that came to you or people in this area. And your study, you recruited 97 students, which is a large amount in terms of engagement and recruitment across 3 flexible learning programs in Western Australia. Can you walk us through how you approached recruitment? Like what were some of the practical challenges and how, you went about data collection?
We had such a good time. I think is like the most important thing. We were initially impacted by COVID.
We've all said 2020.
2020,
of course.
We had a slow start, but really that initial support from leadership was so helpful. And we were so lucky to sort of have introductions made by the lead psychology team and sort of the higher ups. But really the schools that we went into, we started just often by getting to know them. And we were really grateful to be guided by the staff that were there and, the counsellors that were on site. We went in, I think, not expecting to just sit down and collect data. That would have been really quite inappropriate because a lot of these young people might come from trauma backgrounds and have experienced or might have reasons why they mistrust strangers or mistrust health professionals in different ways. So sometimes we would just start by spending a day in the school or a couple of mornings and just kind of hanging out, getting to know them and giving the young people lots of choice about if they were okay to come and see us, what they wanted to work on for the day. They were always okay to change their mind. And because it's a flexible learning program, oftentimes that means the young people are on a modified timetable. So we did just need to be a bit flexy around when the young people might actually be there, what time they were leaving, some of those things.
What were the ages of the young people involved?
So 12 to 18. So we did have, as if people read the paper, they'll see years 7 to year 13. Year 13 is something that the young people described themselves as being in. If they had sort of continued to stay at the school, oftentimes to do some further vocational training or a bit more upskilling and things before they transition into work or post-schooling.
It's so important, isn't it? When you think about recruitment for a study, the most successful studies are going to be the ones that are driven by the people who are going to benefit from the research. But also when that happens, recruitment does follow, doesn't it? And it is more about relationships than it is about anything else. And I think if you approach it that way, the results also have meaning for everyone involved. And it's such a lovely model. I love what you did there. With regards to the assessments, that's obviously a big part of all of this, and developing that relationship would have been really important for the kind of assessments you need to do. What were they in a nutshell? I know you had a few of them, but what did it look like and how long did it take?
Yeah, so we tended to see the young people over 2 or 3 sessions. Overall, it was roughly 2 hours of testing, but sometimes that was sort of broken up into much smaller bits. So we did some assessments from what's called the Clinical Evaluation of Language Fundamentals. So speechies that are listening will know it's like one of our biggest, bread and butter assessments that we use. And that test, it's really massive, but it has a few subtests that contribute to this core language score. And that has really good sensitivity and specificity for identifying whether there's a potential language disorder. So we sort of tried to pick that in terms of being quite efficient if we could. We also added in some other measures that allowed us to see more how the young people could use language. So we used an assessment called the pragmatics profile, also from the self, and that's something that teachers fill out, which is based on their observations of a student's social use of language. So not just like how many words do you know, what are your sentences structured like, but really how are you functioning and, communicating with friends and advocating for yourself and things. We looked at some fancy measures like non-word repetition and digit span, which allows us to look at phonological short-term memory, so how well they can hold spoken information in their memory. And that's more because those sorts of measures are seen to be kind of a clinical marker for potential language disorder.
Right.
So we popped them in as well. And then there were some other tests or some checklists that the teachers did. So the strength and difficulties questionnaire was the psychosocial assessment that the teachers filled out.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
That's so good, isn't it? Like you've got a combination of assessments, but you've also got the people who are spending the most amount of time with them to be able to evaluate. So it's not a once-off. It is a really nice all-round assessment. Interesting. And so when you went through the actual assessments, did you have pretty much all 97? You had all of them complete all of the assessments?
We actually started with about 120 young people, I think, and then for various reasons, we ended up with the final 97 for the analysis. So it's actually more
right,
that we started with.
Okay, so with those with those measures in mind, do you want to go through the results? Let's just go with what comes to mind for you first, because I feel like if I start asking you about particular measures, you'd be like, the stats and all these things. But how about you go through at a high level? What were the main things that you found?
Yes, absolutely. And if I do turn to my piece of paper, it's because I don't want to get the numbers wrong.
People can look at the paper.
Okay, I can look at the paper. People that are listening can't see me looking at the paper.
That's right. We'll put a link of this article for everyone to have a look at as well, and you look at the more specific statistics.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think if we think broadly about the language skills first, across the whole sample, nearly 70% of the young people had below average language skills.
Wow.
So when we look at that core language score, which is, look, it's not a comprehensive assessment in itself, but it can be indicative of a potential language disorder. Yeah. Right. So, close to 3/4 or starting to get close to 3/4 of those young people were really struggling with those core language skills, which was significant. Yeah.
And that's consistent with the results from overseas, wasn't it?
It was, They had found very slightly higher, I think 72% or something, but really consistent overall, which I think was quite validating for the schools when we were able to report that back. There was kind of that sense of, we knew that something was going on, and we were flagging that there were potential difficulties. So it was, I think, nice for them to actually have that data.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the majority. It's more, it's no matter how you look at that number, like more of the young people entering these services are actually, the schooling system is needing that extra support. Yeah. Was that from the self? Was that all from the self?
That was based on that core language score of the self. Yeah.
What about what you mentioned before, the digital...
the digit span.
What about that? What did that look like?
That phonological memory, across the board, they were also below average on phonological memory. So again, not hugely surprising. You know, we would expect that in a lot of young people who are presenting with language disorder. Same as on that pragmatics assessment, the social use of language, that was also really challenging for the young people.
Right.
We did actually find that we did an assessment of what's called figurative language, so more like understanding hidden meanings and kind of I suppose related to sarcasm and things like that. And actually those skills were quite good on the whole.
Wow, okay.
Which is maybe surprising, but also maybe not, because by the time you're a teenager, you've really been able to learn some of those patterns and they were just good at those, which was brilliant. So there was definitely a range, you know, and we know that about language difficulties. They're so varied in how they look.
Did some of that assessment about figurative language affect, because I know you mentioned the teacher did some rating scales around was it socialization and speech, like speaking with peers and things like that. Did that correlate?
We didn't actually look at whether that correlated, but we could.
I figured there might be lots of
And the psychosocial outcomes?
Yeah, so overall they were also below the average range, you know, so more than half of the young people were really struggling with those. So we did look at different domains, which is something that people could go off and read if they wanted to. But we were looking at different domains, which included behavioural or conduct problems. Hyperactivity was quite an area that was rated as being quite high. Emotional problems, as well as sort of this sense of total difficulties. And pro-social behaviours. So we want sort of more pro-social behaviours, but generally we were seeing that they were rated as lower.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah. But it did differ depending on how we split the sample, which is maybe what we're coming to have a look at.
Yes.
This is now the language profiles.
Yes.
So we've got, let's talk really interesting. I'm going to let you just, not in a short word, you can use as many words as you like. I forgot that word you used at the start, bloviate.
Bloviate.
Well
done,
Bloviate.
No, you can use as many words as you like
to do that.
As non-speechies, please explain, because I thought that was really interesting in the article.
We'd love to know the key difference between those high and lower language groups.
Yes, absolutely. I would love to call in a statistician friend at this point as well, because this was so out of my wheelhouse when I
why we need help.
Did this analysis. But the latent profile analysis is what we looked at. So essentially, you know, our bigger question that was driving us was, look, we know that these students are generally struggling with language. We're also seeing lower psychosocial skills. Is there a relationship between the two? Or are the students with lower language also the students who have more struggles with their psychosocial skills? So we had, as we've spoken about, there were so many different language subtests that we did, so many different variables. Makes analysis really hard. So the method that we came up with, or that we ended up using, is called a latent profile analysis, but it essentially allowed us to look at all of those different language measures, and the algorithm, I suppose, in that analysis tries to sort of identify clusters or profiles based on looking across all of those measures.
Okay.
So we sort of tested out what happens if we try 3 different groups versus 4 or 5 groups or something. But what we ended up with is that sort of this 2-profile model was the best fit.
Nice.
And then the analysis calculates the probability of a student belonging to one of those particular profiles and sort of slots them in based on that.
Clever.
Statisticians are going to come for me for that. Well, I hope I did an okay job.
I was impressed. I'm impressed.
That's amazing.
Such a good job.
Thank you. So what we ended up with was essentially a sort of half and half sample. So we had about 50%, or we had, I think, 54%. 56%. I'm sorry, I had to check my paper there. 56% of the students were slotted into what we called the lower language group. So we've just used a very general term there. And then the rest of the students, so 46% of the students, or 44% of the students, were in that higher language group.
Okay.
So again, I say higher language, but actually the average, when we look at that core language score, the average on that was 91. So people that know about standardized testing might know that the average is at 100.
Okay.
So they did have stronger language skills, but still sort of towards the lower end of average.
Okay. Yeah.
And then in our lower language group, the average on that core language score was 72, which is about 2 standard deviations below the mean. So really, really falling in that very low sort of average range. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So we've got these 2 groups. How can you use these 2 groups to better understand, and how does that inform what we do next?
Yeah, what do we do with this?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, something we were interested in that kind of came out of this was we looked at a teacher sort of screening tool that they use. So I hadn't mentioned it previously, but there was a measure called the Student Language Scale, which is a really quick little assessment that teachers do to rate kind of level of potential risk of a student being at either language or literacy disorder. And so in that lower language group, 86% of those students had actually been deemed to be high risk by their teachers. So on sort of this questionnaire that asks about, risk factors essentially, a lot of those kids potentially had actually been picked up by the teachers, if they'd used that screener.
Okay.
So that was really interesting to us because we didn't set out to try and validate that screening tool or anything. And, certainly a lot more work would be needed there. But that was really interesting to us just in terms of going, we might have this really quick to administer screener that teachers could do to be starting to identify who these at-risk students are.
Yes.
And I think that was something that was quite new in this population.
Interesting. And are there any other features in each of the 2 groups that you'd be wanting to look at, I guess, in terms of psychosocial outcomes or more specifics on their language? Does it divide that way as well?
Yeah, so across all of those different language subtests that I've spoken about, there was actually a significant difference between the 2 groups.
Wow.
So there was a very clear distinction across those 2 groups. But of course, lots of individual variation within the groups themselves.
But largely knowing which groups they might fall into can then start to hopefully create a pathway of where you might need to go for next.
Yep.
Do you know with the staff you spoke to and the staff you engaged with, obviously some of them come from maybe an English teaching background or they obviously have some experience in obviously language. But in terms of that speech specialty or working with children or young people with language disorders, did the staff have much experience or knowledge around this?
Some of them did, but really individual. Those staff came from really individual backgrounds but were often united in their just passion for supporting these at-risk students. So some had definitely gone off and done some additional training and things, but not always.
Yeah. And given this profile, it does highlight, already, doesn't it? It highlights so many things. So I guess broadly speaking now, well, actually, before we get into what this means, was there anything that surprised you? Was there anything else that surprised you?
Well, I haven't sort of hugely pointed out the difference in the psychosocial skills between the 2 profiles. But this might sort of be super obvious now at this point, but the students in the lower language profile had significantly lower sort of skills, I suppose, on the strengths and difficulties questionnaire. But that wasn't across all of the domains. Okay. So they, compared to the students who had higher language, the students with lower language had significant, challenges with conduct problems, hyperactivity, total difficulties, and they also struggled more with prosocial behaviour.
Right.
However, there wasn't a significant difference on the peer problems measure, which is more sort of bullying experiences and getting along with peers.
Right.
And also there wasn't a significant difference on the emotional difficulties or the emotional symptoms.
Okay.
So part of that might just be sample size. We need to do this more. There's always sample size to look at. But something that we did consider, particularly with things like emotional problems, is that can also be a really hidden feature. It can be really challenging to maybe report on how someone else is experiencing emotions. And we think about those often as like the internalizing symptoms. We often keep anxiety and depression and things it's harder to spot as opposed to hyperactivity or behavioural problems.
More outward
facing problems.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting to us. It did make us think that in the future we'd love to do some assessments that measure that with the young person.
Yes.
And actually get their perspective.
Yeah.
The peer problems as well was maybe not hugely surprising because the nature of the school is so beautifully connected a lot of the time, or they do so much work on connecting the young people with each other that actually that was surprising but maybe quite a nice outcome that they felt connected with their peers.
I mean, that's because it's so intentional, right? It's intentionally brought into all of it, but how lovely that the measure reflects that. Because in a way, I would say that's a surprise.
Yes.
But then when you think about the context that they've, tried to develop for these young people, makes sense.
That's what they might be going for. For sure.
And that's such an important consideration for anyone wanting to support our young people.
And that's obviously starting to improve. Obviously there are still people with massive psychosocial issues going on, but if you're building that peer support, particularly in the age of 12 to 18, where this is often when those issues...
It's a crunchy point.
That's a way to describe it for sure. One at a time.
Even as you're talking there, and we can start to think about ways which I want you let you share about where to from here. But from a research perspective, this is the first study to examine the link between language profiles and psychosocial outcomes in these flexible learning programs. Where do you go from? Where are you going next with this? Or what's your thoughts?
Because I think this is just, you've got the data, now it's like,
now we could do anything.
Right? Like,
I know. Well, luckily we are doing the next steps, which is really exciting. So again, I think it's just a nice testament that this was driven by the needs of the school. Yeah. So now we have this data, and it was this sense of, okay, what do we do next, and how can we, sort of stay involved with each other? So something that we have already done was we sort of went out and delivered some professional learning to the flexible learning staff. So that included teachers, but also, mental health staff and literacy leaders and people like that. So we did actually deliver a workshop for them, and even just sort of in this one-off professional learning context, we were able to see really great improvements in how confident the teachers felt in supporting these language difficulties and really understanding the links between the two. That's not to say some of them didn't have that knowledge already, but we were still able to see this lovely sort of growth.
Yeah,
that paper has actually been published. It actually got published before this one.
Oh, did it?
Just because of the nature of the peer review process and, analyses and things. Okay. So that one was published in 2024, which is out there. But from there, we've also received some funding from Speech Pathology Australia and actually the Curtin Faculty of Health Sciences to continue the work. So we're now moving into more of an, intervention phase, which is what we always wanted. So myself and the research team, which includes Professor Suze Leitao, Professor Mark Boys, and some amazing speechy research assistants, we're co-designing some classroom-based interventions or some strategies that we hope will be supportive of, this broad group, or essentially all of the students. We're hoping that what we do will just benefit from everybody in the classroom. Yeah.
Gosh, that's so important, isn't it? And I love all of that, because really in 6 years, that's not a long time to have done all this work, in the first instance. But also I just think about the local context of people being able to access speeches, the changes within NDIS as well, and, everything being driven more into the community. We do need to think about how we increase the capacity of people, organisations working with these young people. And I feel like that's the model that you have. You're
exactly right. You're exactly right. Like a lot of, all schools are so individual in terms of how they set up these collaborative models. Yeah. But I might sort of generalise and say oftentimes speechies are not situated in schools, particularly high schools.
Sure,
we often are sort of funneled more, and there's more funding in the early intervention, early childhood space, which makes sense. Yeah. But I think this research really highlights what some of us knew all along, which is that we're dealing a lot of the time with neurodevelopmental disorders here, or underlying neurodevelopmental disorders that haven't been picked up.
Yeah.
And they don't just disappear when we move to high school. In fact, as
Probably
we
amplified.
Yeah, they're amplified as the demands of schooling get higher, social demands get higher. All of this becomes all the more challenging. And so I think it reinforces just how much we need allied health professionals, including speechies and, mental health workers to be working together and supporting adolescents.
Yeah.
We talk about critical periods. I know from a physiotherapist's perspective, we talk about periods of potential, growth motor, obviously the early intervention years, but then we talk about ages where children are susceptible to decline and these key intervention periods. And I think with speech, and I think about these, those adolescents before they really hit reaching independence, being able to drive, being able to have their own money, their income. And it's really pivotal in terms of how things can go. And I think if you can have even just a small area of impact, what that could mean for them and their life, and even for their family, it's huge. So I think it's such a time to intervene. I'm really excited.
It is exciting. And I think it's easy for people to sort of hear the term speech pathologist and think, oh, that's for little kids. I know that that's certainly something that I probably thought before I started studying
out
it.
Of it by now?
Surely you grow out of that, or like you just you sit around and blow bubbles and work with kids who have speech sound difficulties or a stutter. And absolutely, we do all those things, but we have this really important space in adolescence and working on really functional vocational goals and helping a young person maybe understand their strengths and needs so that they can then go out and advocate for what they need. It doesn't always just have to be we sit down and we drill vocab and, even though I love to do that. But I think there are very functional things that we can work on with these older students so that they can approach adulthood with a bit more confidence.
And I feel like everything you said there just translates. It's very transdiagnostic, isn't it?
Yeah.
And, I even think about, you're probably alluding to it before as well, like cerebral palsy, for example. I think we spoke about last time. It's not like our children with cerebral palsy are immune to these difficulties and challenges as well. And we have to really think about how we can maximize the use of our expertise and services so that more people can impact beyond your one-on-one session that you might have, isn't it? Because our children are young people, they exist in the world. And so we also need to be in the world.
Yes.
And I just love this model. I can see how this could be so inspiring for so many health professionals to think about their strategies and how we can work more with communities. Emily, just such great work.
Thank you.
So you kind of told us a bit about what you're going to be doing. I guess as a whole, in terms of your final message with regards to why this work is so important and where you think the industry might need to move, any thoughts on that? Big picture stuff.
Yeah, big blue skies thinking.
Love that.
I know.
Yes.
Blue skies.
Yep. Very Suze Littell. Hi, Suze.
It is. Hi, Suze. Look, the message is probably not hugely new. It's just a call to keep sort of driving the same message.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is really that so many young people could potentially benefit from speech pathology and from other services as well. But let's talk speech pathology.
We're allowed to talk to speech
We'll talk about
pathology
speech
today.
pathology specifically.
Yes.
I won't talk about the others or talk to what they might need. We have this concept of universal design and working, with whole groups and whole populations. Yeah. And particularly in school systems, we have this model which is around, first and foremost, let's start by providing really high quality support or instruction to the whole, to the whole group or the whole school community. And when we're looking at these flexible learning programs, there are so many young people that could potentially work with a speech pathologist, and it would be really challenging for us to try and do one-on-one intervention with them.
Yeah, sure.
That would be a huge push in terms of funding and staffing and things like that. So instead, if we can just continue to advocate for getting speechies on the ground and working really collaboratively with teachers, learning from teachers as well, and from, mental health staff that might be there, then maybe we can support a broader group, support as many as possible before we sort of try and do this one-on-one withdrawal model and things. So I know a lot of speeches and schools are working in that way, but I suppose I just want to further reinforce that I think this research really shows that that's what
absolutely.
we're needing as a starting point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good call to action.
Wonderful. Thanks, Emily.
Love that. So good. Look, we're not done yet. We've got our final segment.
Great.
So we're going to head into Tell It to Ed. Ed, as you know, is our producer. He doesn't have a background in child health, but he's been listening. He doesn't have a background in this area. And I'm so sorry. We surprise you every single time about the topic, don't we, Ed? So before you have an opportunity for a question for Emily today, Emily, I'll get you to summarise this work in about 60 seconds or so. And Ed, you'll have an opportunity for one question. So take it away, Emily.
All right. So some teenagers that attend these alternative or flexible learning schools might be experiencing difficulties engaging in mainstream education. That might be because of a whole range of challenges, but oftentimes it's spoken about, that they might be having mental health or quote unquote behavioural difficulties. But actually what we found is that a lot of these young people also have unidentified language difficulties that might have really impacted how they have engaged in school and how they might be learning. We also found that young people that have more challenges with oral language also tend to struggle with their psychosocial skills or those skills that contribute to mental health. So it's really important that teachers consider or schools consider having this collaboration between teachers and speech pathologists and mental health professionals.
Gosh, what a
Well said.
beautiful
Sorry, I
summary.
couldn't look at you.
Very
Otherwise,
good.
I'd
That's
be
okay.
around the corner.
Yeah, that's okay.
I kind of hide in the background, so you won't see me on any of the
Fair
videos.
All right, Ed, question from you.
I think you guys have actually covered it really, really well. So
Yeah.
I always have a commentary question.
Love that.
And I think, and I'm going to sound old now. Well, I turned 50 this year, so it's like half a century on the planet.
Yeah.
So here's my question. I guess a lot of young people, and obviously you looked at the teenage group, are kind of glued to like short form videos like the TikToks and the Instagram reels and things that kind of jump and cut and edit really, really quickly. So every few seconds, the Mr. Beast rule is cut every 3 seconds. And I just wonder whether that kind of constant rapid fire content is kind of making it harder for students who already have language learning difficulties. And I guess if they don't have maybe the focus or the sustained attention, for conversing or for learning, is that exacerbating the situation? I guess is the end point of what I'm asking.
Great observation.
Interesting question. Yeah.
Look, I think it's an area that needs more research, but it is being researched. I think a lot of people are really concerned with that issue. So I think you've hit the nail on the head. That sense that, young people are really wanting to attend or sort of training to attend to shorter and shorter pieces of information and are potentially losing that sustained attention for something, and to really sit and have moments of quiet where this is just my, spitballing, but to have to sit with something and feel uncomfortable with not knowing something and having to think about it and figure it out. That's really challenging.
Without asking AI to answer it for
without
you.
asking
having
AI.
to think, good point.
So look, I think my opinion is I think potentially, yes, there could certainly be, the harder it is for them to sort of sit and really attend to people talking and interaction and things like that. We might expect that it's more challenging for them to be able to tolerate sitting through lessons that are challenging and things. But I also know that some schools are really harnessing that technology really well. They're using that as a way of getting buy-in from students and creating engagement and then building learning and really useful interactions off the back of watching something, which I think can work well too.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Interesting things though, isn't it? Yeah, lots of things to think about.
Really quick follow-up on this.
Second question. He always finds a way to slot in the second question.
We're at 53 minutes, so we've got a little bit of time. Is this the law of diminishing returns, though? So if we've kind of had long sustained attention in the past, And then we went to Facebook where people still had really long posts. And then you had Instagram, that was a picture with captions. And then we had TikTok that was 10 seconds long. And now the whole Mr. Beast on YouTube thing is kind of cut every 3 seconds. Have we reached, I'm trying to be controversial here, have we reached the point of diminishing returns on how this can be harnessed? Or is there a way to kind of undo some of this? And is that a skill set now that, teachers or speech pathologists would now need to kind of flesh that out a little bit, to walk it back a little bit? This is old man talk.
No, I love it. You're making me think about things that I don't necessarily have answers to. What I am aware of is that speech pathologists and a lot of educators and parents are, I think, trying to move their children away from too much of that exposure.
Sure.
There is certainly screen time in classrooms and things, for very good use. But I think generally people are wanting to have conversations about what do we need screens for, and are we able to pull back where possible, knowing that when kids have their device, they probably will spend time. But how do we create balance sort of across all of their environments?
Yeah.
I'd like to think that maybe we've got to the point where we've got such short reels that actually the kids will be going, what happened to the longer videos? I miss the longer videos. And maybe we'll bounce back in the other direction.
The pendulum always swings, doesn't it?
We might swing back.
Let's hope. Yeah. Really good questions.
Great questions.
Thank you. Gosh, I'll keep thinking about that now too as I scroll through.
Yeah, I know.
With my attention span as well. My goodness. Emily, thank you so much for sharing. For being so generous in teaching us as well as us non-speechies. It was really good. What happened to your microphone?
I'm good. We're nearly done.
We're good. Just for those ones, FYI, versus microphone fell down. You're good. You can just hold it. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah,
you're
I'm
nearly there.
So close to the end.
Close to the end, I know. Look, for all of our listeners, I hope you really enjoyed that. I'll link this paper for you so you can take a look at it yourself. It's just really important work that we all need to know about. So head over to researchworks.academy. You'll find links to this paper there. And I'll find your other paper as well, the one that was published in 2024, and pop that on there as well, because obviously that's a bit of a follow-on from this one in a different order. But thank you so much for listening. We've got so much more content for you coming up. We're about to head over to the American Academy soon. So I'm going to be flying over to Philadelphia to be with all of you guys in the US. So really excited to join you in your conference there. So in the meantime, we've got lots of episodes leading into that too. But thank you once again, Emily.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank
Such a treat.
So nice.
We'll do this again with your intervention outcomes. I would love to.
Yeah, that's right.
And you'll remember the words that we learned today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Leviate.
Leviate. Leviate. There we go.
I can't switch the speech off, sorry.
It's so good. It's so good. All right, make sure you all have some brekkie and we'll talk to you all again next time.
Rendezvous next time.
Awesome. Okay, see you. Bye.
Bye. Rendezvous.